This One's Wife. Divorce. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Some of you may recall the brilliant television programme The Day Today. Hosted by Chris Morris and aided and abetted by a range of talented people, which included Armando Iannucci and Steve Coogan, there were a variety of characters that provided news in both a broadcast style and magazine style. What it did was poke a finger in the eye of the delivery of news and was actually prophetic, as it foresaw the direction that news broadcasting would go, becoming ever reliant upon infographics, dumbing down, and becoming sensationalist. I recall one episode in particular that took place where there was an accord that apparently had been reached between Australia and Hong Kong. As Chris Morris explained, the two entities had been at one another's throats for some time. Two representatives appear, the Australian Foreign Secretary and the British Minister for Special Responsibility for Hong Kong, when, at the time, Hong Kong was still owned and governed by Britain. Chris Morris starts upping the ante by asking what will happen if, for instance, Australia starts to breach the historic agreement that has been reached. The British minister explains that any transgression would be met with a firm line, but points out that he can't see that it would actually come to that. Chris Morris seizes on that and suggests to the Australian Foreign Minister, he's knocking a firm line in your direction. What do you say to that? And thus on it goes, and it escalates. Essentially, he then causes the Australian Foreign Minister to declare war by saying, you know what it is, you're both at each other's throats, you're backing it up with military action. What is it? And the Australian Foreign Minister states, you want me to say it? And he says, I want you to say it. I will not flinch, you will not flinch from, and he says, war. Immediately, the host then shifts to basically a war setting in the studio. There are great big letters spelling out war. There are already reporters on the scene, and already, despite the fact that the declaration has only been issued moments earlier in the studio, fighting has already broken out on the hilariously named Australian-Hong Kong border, of which, of course, there is none. It's all satire. But that put me in mind of just how a similar reaction would occur should it ever be the case that divorce would occur between Prince Harry and this one's wife. That at the mention of one party filing for divorce, news agencies around the world would be saying, say the word, it's divorce. And immediately alarms would go off. Reporters would go racing to their desks. Royal correspondents would be hauled out of their beds in the night for commentary. And the world would go into an excited tiz as it would start to speculate on what the terms of the divorce would be, why it had been started, what the trigger event for it was, and so on and so forth. I have previously explained that with regard to the dynamic between Prince Harry and this one's wife, divorce was a probability. This would either be because Harry's had enough and he seeks to escape, the less likely option, or more likely she is the narcissist. There is a disengagement trigger that is activated and she divorces him. Some time ago, I set a time period as to when I saw that it would be occurring and the grounds on which it would. Recently, I'd updated that prediction in respect of an increased likelihood that Harry would be the one that would press the button, although I still saw it as more likely that she would. I also pointed out that at the current time, she wouldn't necessarily do so because I didn't see that any of the disengagement triggers had yet been activated, although I could see in the not too distant future that would be the case. And the triggers would most likely be Harry having some form of breakdown, Harry becoming too difficult to control, or she had found somebody else to replace him. There's been repeated speculation about the state of their marriage, and whilst some of that is tabloid tittle-tattle, it is, of course, appropriate given the fact that you have a narcissist and a victim. Many relationships that end because of the involvement of a narcissist. Some relationships end because they run their course, or it might be, for instance, that both parties recognise it wasn't how it used to be and they amicably part. But many relationships that end do so because there's a narcissist in the arrangement, and that results in difficulties, as I've explained in many of my other videos. Given the fact that Harry has been ensnared by a narcissist and the fact that they are married, there has always been a likelihood that the relationship would falter, that it would fall apart, and thus that would necessitate divorce. Various people have suggested that the Sussexes have already been separated. Others have suggested that advices have been taken in relation to the preparation for divorce. There are others that think that it won't happen because this one's wife is unlikely to be able to find somebody else, and she's going to cling on to Harry because at the end of the day, it's her connection with him that is the only reason that she is known. She would, of course, like it to be otherwise. She would like it to be the case that she's famous in her own right, and of course the delusion of her narcissism would take her in that direction. But it would appear that those newsrooms around the world will be scrambling their correspondence as a consequence of an individual that issued an announcement on X. Somebody who goes by the handle Barrister Law USA, with the title HRH the Royal Commentator USA, tweeted, "I just got a notice. Prince Harry filed for divorce. It's official." And that was sent in the early hours of the morning, UK time. It prompted many people to comment in terms of, good, I hope it's true. There are other individuals asking, where's he filed? How do you know this? The individual concerned has explained that they've been inundated with DMs from reporters. I have no familiarity with who this person is, and as always, I'll leave it up to you to determine the veracity of this information. But either this individual is just kicking up shit in order to get attention, or they actually do have some information, because what they state, as you can see in the tweet that's on your screen, it's pretty plain. I just got a notice Prince Harry filed for divorce. It's official. I'm not sure why that person got a notice or from whom. Ordinarily, the palace makes an announcement about divorce rather than it being announced separately by individuals, but maybe it's the case that with Prince Harry and the somewhat unorthodox methods that he and this one's wife have used in the past with regard to announcements, this is legitimate. Time will, of course, tell. I haven't seen anything in any other news outlets which causes me to look at this with a degree of cynicism, but I thought it would be useful to bring it to your attention in terms of something that has been stated, because it references the fact that Prince Harry has filed for divorce. And of course, we have seen him looking all the more less contented as of late. He's not looked particularly happy. He has been hiding Harry. See parts pass him. There is the suggestion that a property has been bought in Portugal. Might that be because that's where Harry is going to go to? I've explained that it's a possibility that Harry hasn't bought any property, and this is all just part of drumming up publicity for the Costa Terra resort, with Harry getting some favourable terms or possible usage of a property as a consequence of this ambassadorial role. But might it be that a bolt hole has been created for Harry? What about the suggestions of involvement in the P. Diddy scandal? Jaguar Knight made it very clear that there is a videotape involving Harry and this one's wife. It's not clear what level of involvement they have. Is it a case that they were just seen attending a party? Were they in the background while something unpleasant was going on? Or were they actively involved? Jaguar Knight didn't clarify, but just talked about how they ought to be honest about the situation. Might it be that, knowing that this is going to come out, Harry has taken a preemptive strike for the purposes of being able to testify against his wife in relation to that by divorcing her? An act of protection suitably advised. What might have been the trigger for this? What has caused Harry, if this information is correct, what has caused Harry to get in there first and file for divorce? Is it that he's increasingly become sick of the way that she's hogged the limelight and relegated him to spare? Is it a combination of the way that she has isolated him from family and friends, and he's realised now that that's what she's done, and that he misses the UK, he misses his family, he misses his friends, and that's part of the wider treatment of him vis-a-vis the sustained devaluation that he has experienced? Might it be that because he's had this greater period of absence from her, he has seen things more clearly? Or is that symptomatic of the fact that he was gearing up to file a petition for divorce so that he wanted to be away from her? Many questions indeed, and it all stems from this announcement, which is very clear, but so far no further evidence to support it. Might it be the case that HRH, the Royal Commentator USA, is entirely correct and has stolen a march on other news outlets? And if so, well, all hell will break loose in respect of speculation and reportage, and it will certainly give those that comment on this one's wife and Prince Harry plenty of material to be working on. Or is this just simply someone engaging in attention seeking? Either way, if it is the situation that this is legitimate, then it raises those questions about what is it that prompted Harry to take this action. Naturally, him divorcing this one's wife would not go down well with her. He is the intimate partner primary source. Therefore, him ending the relationship and seeking to escape her punches a massive hole in her fuel matrix and causes a huge problem for the narcissist. If you want to understand more about that, I talk about it in separate videos, and you can also read and hear about it in Pipelines and Understanding Changes to the Narcissist Fuel Matrix, so that you can understand just how catastrophic it can prove for the intimate partner primary source to escape the narcissist and instigate divorce petitions. A divorce petition, rather. For this one's wife, it means a substantial amount of fuel becomes lost. There's also the massive threat to control posed by the intimate partner primary source, not only ending the relationship, but being the one that institutes the divorce. Furthermore, in the situation of Prince Harry and this one's wife, because they're famous, this will be replicated in reportage around the world, adding further to the threat to control that this one's wife would experience. And therefore, the cumulative effect would be very, very problematic for her. As ever, understanding what goes on through the narcissistic prism is very important to understand how it impacts upon the narcissist and how the actions in the world are translated by the narcissism. Divorce has been suggested. Let's see if this is accurate. Let's see what it brings. And in the meantime, what are your views? Do you think it's legitimate? Do you think it's happened? Do you think this coincides with the recent separation that we've seen, with them not spending any time together and Harry, in effect, seemingly going into a degree of hiding? Do you think there's any link to what I've mentioned in respect of P. Diddy? Or do you think this is a load of bullshit? And the fact is, it's just somebody seeking attention or possibly stirring up more PR on behalf of the Sussexes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.